I had recently relocated to a quaint house on the outskirts of a small town. Nestled amidst a serene landscape, it was the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. The rental property, owned by a friendly landlord, seemed ideal in every way. Its modern interior and vast, wooded surroundings provided a sense of solitude that I craved. Despite my busy schedule, I managed to steal a moment of respite one Friday afternoon. Eager to explore my new abode, I ventured into the dense forest that bordered the property. As I wandered among the towering trees, a peculiar sight caught my eye, a distant structure obscured by the foliage. Though I couldn't discern its exact nature, I felt a curious pull towards it. However, the fading daylight and my waning energy compelled me to retreat indoors for the night. Later, as darkness cloaked the land, my thoughts returned to the mysterious structure. Unable to shake the feeling of unease, I reached out to my landlord, hoping for some clarity. Yet, as the hours passed with no response, doubt crept into my mind. Had I imagined the whole thing? The following day, plagued by uncertainty, I resolved to investigate further. Venturing deeper into the forest, I soon stumbled upon the enigmatic building once more. Drawing closer, I could make out its weathered facade, an ancient, abandoned home concealed within the undergrowth. Though reluctant, I felt compelled to explore its dilapidated interior. Stepping through the half-open door, I was assaulted by a putrid stench that permeated the air. Ignoring the foul odor, I pressed on, my curiosity overcoming my trepidation. Inside, the darkness was oppressive, broken only by the feeble glow of my phone's flashlight. The ground floor yielded little of interest, a barren room with little more than a decrepit table. However, my attention was drawn to a staircase leading upwards, disappearing into the darkness above. Summoning my courage, I ascended the creaking steps, my heart pounding with each uncertain footfall. But as I reached the top, my confusion turned to disbelief. There was nothing, just a solid wall where the upper floor should have been. Before I could comprehend the impossibility of it all, I heard it, the faint sound of someone breathing, barely audible yet unmistakably real. Panic seized me as I realized I was not alone. Someone, or something, was lurking beyond the wall. With trembling hands, I retreated, the sound of footsteps echoing ominously from above. Fear lent wings to my feet as I fled the accursed house, racing back to the safety of my own home. Locking myself inside, I grappled with the surreal events that had transpired. Was the house even on my landlord's property? And if so, why had he neglected to mention it? My attempts to reach him proved fruitless, his continued silence only deepening my unease. Desperate for answers, I contacted the authorities, hoping they could shed some light on the situation. Yet, their investigation yielded nothing, no trace of the mysterious structure, no evidence of foul play. Frustrated and bewildered, I resigned myself to the unsettling reality that some mysteries defy explanation. In the weeks that followed, I made the difficult decision to break my lease and leave the house behind. Though nothing overtly sinister had occurred, the lingering sense of dread lingered, a constant reminder of the shapeless horrors that lurked within the shadows. To this day, the memory of that eerie encounter haunts me, a reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying things are those we cannot comprehend. It was almost 5 years ago now, on a road trip I was taking across the Midwest. I'm no stranger to the open road, often seeking out remote locations and hidden gems to explore. This particular journey led me to a small, forgotten town nestled in the heart of Kansas. As I sat at a dimly lit bar, nursing a drink and chatting with the locals, they mentioned something that piqued my interest, the old mines that dotted the surrounding countryside. Intrigued, I inquired further, learning of the dozens of abandoned mine shafts that lay just beyond the town's borders. Intrigued by the prospect of adventure, I decided to extend my stay and explore one of these abandoned sites the following day. The hike to the nearest mine was relatively short, but the rugged terrain made it a challenging trek. After a couple of hours, I arrived at the outskirts of the abandoned mining town. The town appeared frozen in time, its dilapidated buildings standing as silent monuments to a bygone era. I made my way through the deserted streets, drawn inexorably towards the gaping maw of the mine entrance. With flashlight in hand, I descended into the darkness of the mine, the narrow tunnel stretching out before me like a yawning abyss. As I ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and the oppressive silence seemed to press in on me from all sides. After what felt like an eternity, I reached a fork in the tunnel. Ignoring the warning signs, I pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity. The path ahead grew treacherous, the ground uneven and unstable beneath my feet. Suddenly, I heard it, a faint but unmistakable sound echoing through the cavernous depths of the mine. It was a low, guttural moan, like the anguished cry of some unseen horror lurking in the shadows. My heart pounding in my chest, I pressed forward, my flashlight casting long, twisted shadows on the rough-hewn walls. And then, I saw them. Two figures, hunched and grotesque, emerged from the darkness ahead. They moved with an unnatural, jerking motion, their eyes vacant and lifeless as they fixed their gaze upon me. A primal instinct screamed at me to flee, to turn and run back the way I came. But something held me rooted to the spot, a morbid fascination with the grotesque spectacle unfolding before me. As they drew closer, I could see that their bodies were twisted and malformed, their skin pale and clammy to the touch. And then, without warning, they lunged. I stumbled backwards, my heart pounding in my chest as I scrambled to escape their grasp. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled desperation, I turned and fled, the sound of their ragged breathing echoing in my ears as I raced towards the surface. Emerging into the cool night air, I stumbled out of the mine and into the deserted streets of the town. My mind reeled with terror and confusion as I made my way back to civilization. The memory of those twisted figures burned into my consciousness like a waking nightmare. In the days that followed, I sought solace in the arms of friends and loved ones, but the memory of that harrowing encounter continued to haunt me. And though I tried to convince myself that it was nothing more than a trick of the mind, a part of me knew the truth, that something truly malevolent lurked in the depths of that abandoned mine, something shapeless and unknowable, waiting to ensnare unsuspecting souls in its dark embrace. Back in my early 20s, I hung out with a small group of friends, Jake, Max, and me. Our idea of fun usually involved exploring the wilderness near our city, venturing into the unknown and seeking out whatever mysteries lay hidden in the shadows. One evening, Jake dropped by my place with a tale that sent shivers down my spine. A friend of his had mentioned a creepy abandoned structure tucked away in the woods not far from where we lived. Naturally, curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to investigate. We gathered our gear, flashlights, snacks, the essentials, and rendezvoused at Max's apartment. With a sense of trepidation and excitement, we set off, parking the car near a local grocery store and setting out on foot towards the forest. According to Jake's friend, there was a trail that led to a lookout point, beyond which lay the mysterious abandoned building. As we trudged along the trail, passing fellow hikers on their way back, doubts began to gnaw at me. Was this all just an elaborate prank? Despite my misgivings, we pressed on, the sun sinking lower in the sky with each passing minute. Eventually, we reached the lookout, pausing briefly to catch our breath before continuing into the deepening gloom of the forest. As we trudged deeper into the woods, frustration began to simmer beneath the surface. We had been walking for what felt like ages, yet there was no sign of the supposed abandoned building. Jake's assurances did little to quell our growing unease. Then, just as my doubts reached their peak, a rustling in the underbrush drew our attention. With hearts pounding, we trained our flashlights on the source of the noise, a dilapidated structure looming in the distance. A surge of adrenaline flooded my veins as we hurried towards it, the promise of discovery overriding any lingering doubts. But as we drew closer, a sense of foreboding washed over me. There was something deeply unsettling about the building, something that seemed to defy explanation. The structure itself was like something out of a nightmare, an ancient, weather-beaten relic standing alone in the heart of the forest. The front door lay discarded on the ground, inviting us inside with its eerie silence. Against my better judgment, we ventured into the building, the foul stench of decay assaulting our senses. The interior was no less ominous than the exterior, with rusted tools scattered amidst piles of debris. As we explored the dimly lit rooms, a sense of dread settled over us like a suffocating blanket. It was then that Max made a discovery that would haunt us for years to come, a body, lying lifeless on the floor of one of the rooms. With a cry of horror, Max stumbled backwards, his face drained of color. Panic gripped us as we heard a series of thuds emanating from behind a closed door, sending us fleeing into the night. We raced back through the forest, each footfall echoing in the darkness as we struggled to put distance between ourselves and whatever horrors lurked within that accursed building. When we finally reached the safety of the road, we collapsed in exhaustion, the events of the night swirling in our minds like a fever dream. Summoning what little courage we had left, we made our way to the nearest police station, where we recounted our harrowing ordeal to a skeptical officer. Despite our insistence, he seemed reluctant to take our claims seriously, dismissing them as the antics of foolish youths. Hours passed as we waited anxiously for news, our fears growing with each passing minute. Finally, a call came. A group of officers had been dispatched to investigate the abandoned building. We waited with bated breath for their return, our nerves frayed and our minds awash with dread. When they emerged from the forest, their grim expressions told us everything we needed to know. Bloodstains, signs of recent activity, but no trace of the body we had discovered. It was as if the building itself had swallowed up all evidence of its grisly secrets, leaving nothing but unanswered questions in its wake. In the weeks that followed, the incident faded from the headlines, relegated to the annals of forgotten tragedies. But for Jake, Max, and me, the memory of that night would forever linger, a specter haunting the dark corners of our minds. And as I sit here, recounting the tale, I can't help but wonder what other horrors lie hidden in the depths of the forest, waiting to be unearthed by unsuspecting souls. For some mysteries are better left unsolved, their secrets buried beneath the weight of eternity.